This is Karen Ramsey, and I am at the Canada Fruit Festival with one of my very favorite people, John Kohler. John Kohler runs some wonderful websites that I highly recommend. Growing Your Greens is it's like excellent about growing food and everything natural and healthy, and John is like all about that. He's like just so knowledgeable, one of my favorite health speakers. He also has discountjuicers.com. I always recommend people to look at that website for their juicers and other equipment. And so I haven't seen John for a while, and I know he's up to a lot of new things. He's talking to me about freeze drying. And so, John, can you tell me what you're up to now with preserving food and eating healthy?
Sure, yeah. So, I mean, I'm a gadget guy, so I love gadgets, and I always try to improve my diet, whether it's improving the quality of the food that I'm eating myself, or that I'm able to process it in a better way than previously to preserve more nutrients, more phytochemicals, better flavor tastes, and even crunch. So, yeah, so lately I've been into really vacuum blending and actually freeze drying under vacuum, which is like totally new concepts for raw foods because most people aren't aware of these things, which is quite unfortunate.
Can you tell me how you go about doing this?
Yeah, so vacuum blending, I mean, I'll give you that, guys, a concept. You basically, you know, in a blender, when you blend, you see that vortex. I mean, if you make a smoothie, you see that vortex going in there. If you put water in your blender, you see the vortex in the middle. That's like a tornado in Kansas ripping up houses and destroying things. There's some raw food educators that even say 99% of things are destroyed in a blender if you blend it. So that hasn't been to be my truth or what I've seen based on the research or the studies.
Or how people feel.
Or how people feel. But I have seen, you know, significant nutrient degradation of certain nutrients in the blender, like the Vitamix actually they used at this event, without a vacuum. So, you know, some nutrients will be affected by blending and some will not. What nutrients are affected by blending? Well, the problem with the blending is that it's doing multiple hits. Like if I just sit here and hit you once softly, that didn't hurt, John, I'm all right. But if I hit you like super fast, then you'd get a big bruise, you'd be hurting, and you probably wouldn't like me anymore. But that's what you're doing in your food when the blender's going around 20 million times or 20,000 times. You know, it's hitting your food, opening the cell walls, exposing all the phytonutrients to air, and that's causing oxidative damage as proven by science. So there's published, documented studies showing significant antioxidant declines. Now, it doesn't affect the minerals, you know, because the minerals are hardcore, but things that will be affected by oxygen. So if you cut open an apple, it turns brown, that's oxidation. You blend up apples or bananas in the Vitamix, they turn brown, that's oxidation. And so what the vacuum blender does is you basically have a top on the blender carafe, and before you blend, it basically sucks out the excess oxygen out of the blender, much like the food saver, if you're familiar with the food saver, you know, where you would suck out the air out of the packaging, you know, before you store your food in the freezer or in the fridge. Then without the air, then the food doesn't go bad as quickly. Well, when you suck the air out before you blend, then all that oxidative damage that should be occurring does not occur. And proven by scientific research published journals, I found one finally in Korean. I can't read most of it, but I could see the charts. You know, you could have 2 to 3 times more of these polyphenol antioxidants and other antioxidants. So for example, in the study they did blueberries, and you could have 3.2 times more of the polyphenol antioxidants in blueberries. You know, the polyphenols are one of the many components of foods, you know, that play a part in our health. And if you're blending your blueberries, you're basically losing 1/3 of the nutrition by blending them. And, you know...
So tell me about this vacuum. You can add that to a blender?
Right. So generally they make vacuum blenders which actually have it built in from the get-go. And sometimes, depending on your blender, like you can modify your blender if you're handy. Like I found out about vacuum blenders at the trade show, which I go to, and I don't see any other raw foodists there personally that I'm aware of. And I like to investigate all these things. So I saw them. I'm like, oh my God, I've been blending all these years, losing all these valuable phytonutrients. And to me, phytonutrients are essential to our health. Key. They are _1 anti-age. I mean, these are the free radical scavenging properties of the foods. And when you're blending, you're losing these things. You know, 1/3 of them, that's a pretty massive cut, you know. And so I'm like, oh my God, I don't want to blend anymore. I mean, I'm kind of like, call me like, I don't know, like, try to do the things the best as possible, and I found out a better way, and I really didn't want to do it the old way, you know. So I'm like, I can't even buy these things. They're not even available in the U.S. yet. What do I do? And if I maybe could have spent $2,000 to import one or something from Japan, because that's where they came up with this concept in the 1990s. So then I basically like, how could I do this myself? So I converted my Nutribullet, which I have a Nutribullet, and I basically just drilled a hole in the top and bought this kit on Amazon for $20 with this like vacuum, like little like valve and a little pump, like $20. And a drill bit, and I was able to convert my Nutribullet into a vacuum blender now. So you might want to post that video down below, or just search for that, how to convert a Nutribullet into a vacuum blender, where I show people how to do that. So if you're handy, you could make your own vacuum top for your blender and get a little vacuum pump, whether you're using it for brake lines or whether you're using it to preserve food.
And
people could do it themselves.
In that video that you do you tell people, like, let's say if they don't have a Nutribullet,
I only show how to
their own blender?
I show you how to convert a Nutribullet because it's significantly easy.
Oh, really?
Other blenders can be significantly hard and or almost impossible to do it unless you're super handy and you could cut a piece of plastic the right exact size and you get a gasket around it and then you get a one-way valve. So it's beyond most people's comprehension or ability to do that. And so I didn't convert my Vitamix, for example, although there's a website that you can buy a piece of plastic, cut it and get an O-ring and do these things and convert your own Vitamix if you want to. But then companies started coming out with vacuum blenders, so then I started selling them. I started making videos about them to educate people about these. And then I saw one of the vacuum blenders I was selling, the carafe. I'm like, you know what? That carafe looks like it's going to fit a Vitamix. Let's try it on a Vitamix. I tried it on the Vitamix, and it works. So you could basically buy this vacuum, this container that fits the Vitamix that also comes with a vacuum pump that now you could put on your Vitamix motor base and now vacuum blend. And so I sell that on my website, Discount Juicers, for $180,
awesome.
including shipping to the continental United States, if you want to do that.
Yeah.
You may find it valuable, you may find it not. I'm currently experimenting with other parts from other blenders that are vacuum that will also fit the Vitamix for less money. And as soon as I'm aware and I figure it out, I'll be having a video on that.
Will that be on OK Raw?
It'll be on OK Raw because I sell blenders for a living, but I will show you what part you need to buy to convert your own. So this new blender craft that I'm investigating that fits the Vitamix is $100, and then you would have to come up with your own vacuum top or vacuum attachment, whether it's a $5 pump or a $30 pump, to make it all happen. So you're still in it over say $105 minimally to $150 to do a vacuum blend for your current Vitamix. Blendtech is working on a vacuum blender. I do have I'm one of their beta testers. I'm beta testing the Blendtech vacuum blender, and each one's a little bit different, have their pros and cons. But I think that we should all be blending under vacuum to preserve 2 to 3 times more of the valuable phytonutrients such as vitamin A, vitamin C, and different polyphenols and antioxidants. And the other, besides just the nutrition, which is important to me, I know a lot of people might do Instagram. When you're blending without the with vacuum, you're going to keep much more vibrant colors, because the reason why your nice red tomato sauces turn brown is because of the oxidation damage. So now under vacuum, there's less turning of brown of your recipes, but also it's also, when you've ever blend in the Vitamix, if you make a banana smoothie, right, the level's here, and then you blend, you're done blending, it goes up to here. Now, did you instantly create, an extra, half cup of food? No, you just injected all this air into the food because that's the process of blending.
Oh, wow.
So under vacuum, the air is removed, so now you're not adding, any air while you're blending, and so there's less air bubbles in there, so you may have less gas, belching, and bloating. I think you'll also get better digestion. In addition, nutrients are correlated with the taste, and so now the things that you're blending, maybe if you blended mint before, you don't really taste the mint because when the blending, it oxidizes some of the taste, some of the nutrition, and under vacuum blending, then it has stronger flavors, so things taste better. In addition, storability, that's huge. Have you ever made a banana smoothie, green smoothie with bananas, coconut water, whatever, and some greens, and you drink most of it, and then you couldn't finish the last bit, you let it sit out on the counter for a couple, 3 hours. You go back later, drink it 3 hours later, you're like, oh my God, this tastes nothing like it did 3 hours ago. It tastes gross, it tastes nasty.
Yeah.
If you vacuum blended it, then after 3 hours, it's still gonna taste pretty much close to what it tasted like when you made it, because here's the reason why. Because the antioxidants are preserved under vacuum blending, so now the antioxidants are in there after blending to protect the food while it's still sitting, while you haven't drunk it yet.
Okay.
So it's like, I mean, this is like, to me, this is like a no-brainer. It makes sense, and to some people, they're resistant to change and they don't want to, I mean, I think on some level, Vitamix, the company, because they're not working on a vacuum blender or a vacuum lid attachment or anything for their blender, as far as I'm aware, because if they come out with one, It's like them saying, oh, the blending that we've been promoting all these years, that's for good for nutrition and good for this, good for that, is not good, and we have to come out with this new one.
They don't want to do that.
And actually, Vitamix came out with an aeration disc, which actually puts more air into your mixture to like make frothy smoothies or whatever, frothy cappuccinos, whatever people are doing. Will they ever come out with one directly? I don't know. So I say, you know, take your health in your own hands, buy an attachment, you know, get some kind of solution, convert it yourself, buy a vacuum blender if you want to. You know, I have on my OK Raw channel, I've tested a lot of them. You could buy one on Amazon for like $100, and I've tested a lot of them. And there's even a $100 model that I've tested that's actually solid. I recommend my friend Kailash, who works at Ann Wigmore.
Oh, I know Kailash.
He's been using it, and he's like, John, for $100, that's a good blender. It only has a 1-year warranty. Although I did have problems with mine, I called the company for $15. They basically sent me a new carafe, so they had good service. It's called the Flezion vacuum blender on Amazon. It's like, it varies around $100 to $140 if you want to get a cheap one. That's a cheap one that I would recommend that I talked to the company with at the trade show. That's like solid.
I think people will be willing to invest a small amount to have more nutrition.
I mean, I would think so too. I mean, for this
me,
my
I know
nutrition
I would, so.
and a taste change, the color difference, the storability, and so like every smoothie or blended mixture or juice I make even is stored under vacuum to preserve more nutrition, and it just makes a significant difference. So, for example, if I get like sugarcane juice, I get sugarcane juice in LA. I have a sugarcane juicer, but only certain times of the year can I get cane to juice in my juicer. But in LA, I could get like sugarcane juice at the juice bar all year long. If I just bring that home, keep it cold, without anything, the sugarcane juice might be good for like 3 days before it spoils, goes bad, goes rancid, the taste starts to taste nasty. If I put lemon juice with the sugarcane juice, then I can maybe get like 5 days out of it. Might last a few extra days if I put a good significant portion of lemon juice. Why? It's antioxidants. If I put lemon juice and then pull a vacuum on the container it's being stored in, I've stored it for up to a month. Not that I recommend that, because that's not optimal by any means, but it just shows you the ability of the oxidation and the antioxidants in the food that is there meant to protect the plant, protect the food from going bad before you get to consume it, so you could consume the highest levels.
Cool.
So that's the vacuum blending.
Great
and
information.
Yeah, then the other thing I've gotten into is vacuum freeze drying. So unlike dehydration, where you have the heating element, and this is like, I mean, I'm glad dehydration's been out there, and I've dehydrated most of my raw food career, but now there's something better, and it's called freeze drying. No, while the vacuum blender is really inexpensive, as low as $100 for a decent vacuum blender, actually, the freeze dryers are $2,000 to $3,000. So this is only for people that are super wealthy or super really into their health and wants to get the maximum. And at present time, I will make a disclaimer that I do not recommend the freeze dryer company at this time, although I like the freeze drying process, because I had some personal issues with the freeze dryer company not taking care of me after I, paid money for the $2,000 to $3,000 machine. So I have a video on YouTube, Harvest Right freeze dryer. Don't buy one until you watch this video, which they don't like. And actually, they told me
is that on Growing Your Greens?
It's on my gardening channel. And they said, John, if you take the video down, we'll give you the money that you paid for the freeze dryer. And I said, I'm not going to take the video down, because that would feel like you're buying me out. And I want to live with integrity and show people what really happens in my experience. So I will never take that video down. The title may change if they do improve their customer service and warranting some other issues I have with the company currently. Although the technology of vacuum freeze drying is totally amazing. You could take avocados, which if you put avocados in the dehydrator and turn on your dehydrator, they're going to turn black, they're going to turn gross, they're going to turn nasty, they're going to go bad, they're going to oxidize to heck. If you put them in the freeze dryer, just cut them up, put them in the freeze dryer. It first freezes the produce solid to minus 40 degrees. It basically, turns all the liquids turn into ice crystals. And then under vacuum, so once again, oxygen deprived environment, it's under vacuum. It slowly heats up the bottom to basically sublimate the moisture out, all under vacuum during its frozen, and then it just heats it up a little bit. And under vacuum, liquid or water could be one of two states. It could be either solid in the food or gas in the air, like the clouds. It cannot be like in the form of the water. So under vacuum, as it heats it up, the moisture literally sublimates, or just literally floats out of the food, attaches to the walls of the chamber in a gas form, and then basically will turn into ice on the walls of the chamber. And this process could take 24 to 48 hours to basically remove all the water from the food. And then when you're done, the vacuum freeze dryer turns off, and then basically you could take out that food and you could store that food. If it's not like avocados, like I make salads for my garden that I then store, vacuum, freeze dry, that could store for up to 25 years. That now, you know, I could eat my lettuce or arugula that I grew in the wintertime that's not going to grow in the summer where I live because it's too hot, and eat my, you know, my meals. And, you know, when I travel, I take vacuum freeze-dried salads and fruits. So if I can't get to a place with fresh fruits and vegetables, which are definitely better than freeze-dried or dehydrated, you know, I have my food that is only missing the water content. Now, the coolest part of the vacuum freeze drying is it also preserves the most nutrition next to eating things fresh, because it's done under vacuum, like 99, high 90% nutrition. The color barely changes, and also it gives you that crunch that you may have been missing all these years. I mean, I've vacuum freeze dried just zucchini chips or cucumber chips, and instead of getting hard and just weird, they look like little chips, and they crunch, and they're amazing. They like melt in your mouth.
Very cool. And
it's just so cool. And then the coolest thing is, once I'm done, all the moisture the water has basically attached to the chamber outside, and then you defrost it, so then it all melts. And then I take that water, and then I run it through a filter, and then I get to drink that water. That water is the purest water on earth. Why? Because it's not from a lake, it's not from the tap, it's not filtered. It's from basically the plant that had the water in it, and we pulled it out, and now I'm basically defrosting it and filtering it back, and then I get to drink the water from fruits and vegetables. And this is not a juice, it's 100% pure water with maybe some minerals and a little bit of flavor of the fruit or vegetable that I freeze-dried added, which is totally amazing. This is how we should be getting our food, our liquid, our moisture from fruits and vegetables. So that's, in a nutshell, that's pretty much what's going on with me.
Great. Wow. Two important things to know. And John, so the places where people can find this information,okraw.com, Growing Your Greens on YouTube.
And growingyourgreens.com forwards to my YouTube channel, and then youtube.com/rawfoods, which is where I have a lot of the demonstration videos for the vacuum blenders that I sell. And if you want other vacuum blenders, I have a video on OK Raw about the ones I do not sell that I do recommend.
And do you have some of this information also on discountjuicers.com?
So I have, on Discount Juicers, I have only the vacuum blenders that I sell. Okay. And there's a video to correspond with each vacuum blender that I do sell on there. But I have more videos on YouTube on vacuum blending that are not on my website.
Okay. This is important information for those of us who want to get more health through raw food. So this is a great way to do it. Thanks, John. It's great having you with us.
Thank you. It's good to see you guys out there, and keep eating your fresh fruits and vegetables.